Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to introduce myself. I figured today during the masterclass, since we only have 30 minutes, I wanted the students to get the most out of it. So if they had particular questions that they wanted me to answer, I'd be more than happy to do that. Again, my name is Shannon. I'm a clarinetist with the President's Own, and I've been in the band almost 9 years, but I have about 19 years of military service. I was in another special band before I got to the Marine Band, and I am also from Tennessee, but on the other side. I'm from East Tennessee. I grew up in Sevier County, went to school in Gatlinburg.
Very nice. Well, boys, do you have any questions to start us off? Anybody out there? This is our clarinets, our oboes, and our flute players today that are with us.
Fantastic.
I have one.
Okay.
Was clarinet your first instrument that you picked up?
The first instrument that I played before a wind instrument was piano. And that gave me a great foundation for when it came time to, read music on the wind instruments. Also, after I played clarinet, I self-taught myself to play flute and oboe as well.
Oh, that's great. Any other questions, guys? Well, what's it like playing with the President's Own Marine Corps band? It seems to be absolutely prestigious as you can get. Can you give us some insight on that?
Sure. It is a job that I never take for granted, because growing up in a small town in Tennessee, this was a dream of mine to be in this band. My band director was a big fan of the Marine Band, so I grew up knowing about it. This is a job that it was a goal of mine to be here, so I don't take it for granted at all. I'm surrounded by the highest talent you could imagine. There's 25 clarinet players in the band, and they're all, like a principal player that you would find in any major orchestra. So that keeps me motivated and focused being in that kind of environment. But as far as being in the band, there's so much variety in what we do, from playing classical music to jazz, all different styles of music that we need to know how to play, and being completely prepared for every job we do. Whether we're playing at the White House or doing a concert, we have to make sure that we're very organized and very dedicated to our practicing, so that we come to that first rehearsal completely on top of everything on the ball. So it's a very high profile job, but it's also one that is fun for me because I've done music my whole life and I just absolutely love what I do.
I have a question. What are some good etude books that you would recommend for our guys to work out of?
Well, speaking from a clarinet standpoint, everyone has to know those Rose etudes. You must know the Rose etudes. I also, when I teach, I use these progressive studies books. And if you can see these, they're, French, German, and Italian. All of my students, those etudes in them, but all different, as I was saying, learning all different styles of music. I'm also big on making sure that all my students know patterns, memorizing patterns in every single key. I'm sure some of you have seen those, like a paragraph of words, and they'll jumble up the words, but they'll keep the first letter of every word there, and you're still able to read it. It's the same with music. So when you pull up like a Weber concerto or Mozart concertina or a Rose etude, you're not reading individual notes. You're looking at a pattern, a chunk, and you're able to not focus on the vertical, but more on the horizontal, the phrasing, and being able to read the patterns is really, really important. Okay. What are some patterns you teach? Okay. Use this book. These are the patterns. And can you hear me talk?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so basically, when my students come across a difficult passage in a piece, I will have them turn that into a pattern, whether it's different articulation patterns or just breaking it down. And sometimes I'll even have them come back to their next lesson with that as a pattern. I was a product of Indiana University is where I went to school. And my teacher, Mr. Klug, was big on patterns, and he would make us learn our patterns and transpose them in every single key. So this, I think, is really important to help us to not get bored with things like long tones and scale patterns, and not just reading note for note, but really having to think about what we're doing. So he would give us a scale pattern and say the key of C, and I'd have to come back the following week playing the whole pattern through all the different keys. So that really helped me to get everything in my fingers. But just playing patterns in different sequences like this every week and trying to memorize that. Personal favorite solo. There's so many good ones. You know, I don't have a particular or excerpt. I don't have a particular favorite solo, but I do like the Horowitz concerto, Horowitz Sonata. If you're not familiar with that one, look that one up. The second movement is probably the most beautiful slow movement that you'll find, and that it has all different variety of music in it. The third movement's kind of jazzy, so another reason to know all different styles of music. I'll play a little bit of what I have on my stand. I'll just pick some kind of excerpt in here to play. See if it's something that I can just play for you.
Okay.
Etude from one of the progressive French books, and you might recognize it. I'll play a little bit of it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Do I change? Thank you. Do I change the articulations with the patterns? Yes, absolutely. Especially if I'm working on, a difficult passage. Definitely take that difficult passage. Don't spend so much time on the stuff you know how to play. It's fun, but spend time challenging yourself. So take that chunk of music that you're having a difficult time with and break it down into all different types of articulations. So say, I'm having trouble with this first part. Maybe I'm having trouble with the first part, so I might want to go. Then I'd break it down. Or finally, after doing that through different times, you put it all back together. And then it just becomes a little, you can wrap your mind around it so much easier. With the different ensembles. The most interesting one, and you may not be familiar with this, is a reed quintet. And this is something that we have just recently formed in the last year or two. But the reed quintet is much like a woodwind quintet, except there's no horn, and in place of the horn, there is a saxophonist. So we have English horn, oboe, saxophone, bassoon, bass clarinet, which is what I play in that group, and B-flat clarinet. And it creates the most wonderful blend of sound. There should be a recording of us on our YouTube page. If not, they're going to post one soon. And that is my favorite group to play with. But I've done many different. Everyone in the band has opportunities to play in all different settings, from duets to trios to klezmer to orchestra and band. So the variety is just amazing there. If a student were interested in joining a military band, what would you need to do? Well, from my experience, I knew which military band I wanted to perform in. I knew that I wanted to be in one of the special bands, and those particular bands, the auditions are much like any major orchestra. So you definitely need to understand and know band excerpts and orchestral excerpts. Make sure that you listen to the band that you want to be a part of. I spent a lot of time listening to the Marine band. The clarinet section, is different than the clarinet section you might find in a different military band. So learning how to play like them and how to blend like them. If I were wanting to be in their section, what do I need to work on to be in that particular section? I went to music school, went to Indiana University and studied there, take private lessons. But as far as the process for being in a military band, if you go into the special band, you audition like a major orchestra. So you audition first, win the job, and then you enlist. There are other bands like the fleet bands or the field bands, and you would actually go into the service first and then join the band. So I hope that answers that question for you. Where have you been able to perform with the group? Just about all 50 states. Have not been to Hawaii yet. Hoping to get there. But every October we travel West Coast. This coming October, if everything pans out and we're able to travel, we'll be coming through Tennessee. And I'm hoping, I believe I'll be one of the soloists on that tour, so I'm excited about that. Did you make All-State Band in Tennessee? Yes, I did. And I took it very seriously. I just loved Tennessee All-State Band, and I did All East and then Tennessee All-State Band, and I think every year I was in it, I ended up being like 6th chair. I always wanted to be that first chair player. But I took a lot away from that. Auditioning is an art. Learning to audition is an art, and you have to do it a lot. You have to just audition for everything, play for everything you can. What instrument do you enjoy playing the most and the least? Well, I've learned piano, clarinet, flute, oboe. Obviously, I love clarinet the most, but I've really learned to love bass clarinet. I've been playing a lot of bass clarinet and a lot of the low clarinets, and I've really learned to love that right now. I did make Governor's School for the Arts in Tennessee. I did do that. Fantastic opportunity. Fantastic opportunity to do the Governor's School. I think I practiced like 7 hours a day when I was there. Are you going to play a new instrument? I'm always learning. I think we should always try to learn. Maybe I'll take up singing, because I think we learn so much from vocalists. You should really sit down and listen to some opera singers, especially if you're working on concertos, Weber concertos. listen to some opera, learn about it, sing the concerto, sing the Weber, da dee 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 da 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 da. You know, learn it. Learn. The tenor might be singing this, the soprano might be singing that. Take so much away from opera singers and string players. What is the favorite part of your job? That's a difficult one. I can't say there's one favorite part of my job, but there are many special things about my job. The people I get to meet, the big name people like John Williams, meeting these big name people and having a connection with them. But I think what is the most special is when we're performing and we play the service medley at the end of our concerts, and you look out and you see people, how it touches them. You're speaking to them through music, and music has that way, and I think that's why we really love what we do. It's just a different way that we can communicate and touch people through what we do, and that's why I do what I do. So which performers would you recommend listening to? When I was in high school, I listened to a lot of Benny Goodman clarinet playing. I think we should try to listen to. You really should try to find good musicians to listen to. Get that sound in your ear. But I listened to Benny Goodman. He had such good musicality, so many good ideas, just free playing, and very, almost like very extroverted playing, just get up there and play whatever comes out and enjoying what you do. I think listening to that type of music really helped me to just be relaxed in my playing. But there's so many good clarinet players out there. One that I really like right now is Martin Frost, and then there's another good bass clarinetist out there right now. His name is on the tip of my tongue. I'll have to think about it, but Martin Frost is a lot of fun because he's another one of those players that just plays whatever he wants and it's kind of out of the norm. Any tips for preparing for an audition or a major concert? Anything you do before going into the room on stage? So there's definitely a connection between musicians and athletes. I'm sure many of you are, involved in athletics, and everyone has a pregame ritual that you do. When I approach my practice routine, I make sure that I kind of prioritize those things that I need to work on, but I also practice a lot away from my instrument, especially when I'm going into an audition, making sure that I'm not even like using my instrument. I'm going through the music in my head. I'm visualizing myself in the audition room. I might even go to wherever the audition is the day or two prior and visit it and look at it so that I'm comfortable when I show up. I think that's extremely important when you're talking about bass, and not so much just practice, but a lot of it has to do with visualizing, but being consistent with your practicing. Definitely be consistent with your practicing. Record yourself, record your excerpts, have someone listen to you, get a private teacher. Did you play for famous people? Yes. Quite a few. So many that I can't really think of them off the top of my head. When we play at the White House, the president whoever the president is will invite his guests there. So from big name national sports teams to famous singers, we've played for quite a few famous people. Have you been able to compose and arrange? We have arrangers on our staff who arrange music for us. I never took arranging in college, so that's not something that I am well versed in, but we have amazing arrangers. So if I say, hey, I want to play this, cello piece, can you arrange it for bass clarinet? And we have somebody that will just do that for us, and they're amazing, the transcriptions that they come up with. What do you think about learning circular breathing? I think any kind of extended technique that you can do will just make you a much better player. In this day and age, you hear so many, clarinetists, flutists, all different woodwind players able to double tongue, triple tongue, circular breathe, you name it. Always pushing themselves to the next challenge. So I think circular breathing is a good idea, especially with 20th century clarinet literature or transcriptions of string music where there's no place to breathe. So learning how to circular breathe just makes the music so much more connected. If you can do it, I have not been able to do it. So it's not necessary, but if you can, it will put you ahead of the game. Work on basics now, absolutely. Master those things first. Don't get in over your head too much. You won't be able to circular breathe until you learn how to do your long tones. I'm not certain if circular breathing is possible for flute. What's cool that flute players can do? Y'all can do that like beatboxing stuff. I think that's very cool. A different technique to be able to do. I'll have to check on if circular breathing is possible for the flute. It's probably a little harder. I don't know if you'd be able to do that. What's the hardest piece you've played? We've had some very difficult transcriptions in the band that have really challenged everyone in the section. We just recently went on a trip to Japan, and we were thrown a bunch of new music, all kinds of new music put on the stand, learning all different notes, really challenging. So I can't really say that, particular solo piece was the hardest thing I've done. I've had many pieces in band that have been extremely difficult to play. But things like the Nielsen Concerto for clarinet, that's pretty tough. Tongue pizzicato is awesome. Is that like the really short? The clarinet section in the Marine band has a very distinct way of playing very short, and we all can match each other. So, how's the band dealing with the quarantine? Well, we have this new initiative with the virtual online clinics, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and we hope to continue doing that. We've reached so many students across the U.S. And it's been such a wonderful program. We're learning it, so learning the different platforms, and whatever comes our way, like this challenge right now with me not being able to hear you, I'm still able to continue on with this clinic, which is amazing. But we're not meeting as a band. I miss my colleagues, but we are using technology to put performances out there. We just did the whole suite. I don't know if you saw that. 34 of us each recorded our own part, sent it in, and we did the whole suite. And then we have smaller groups doing things, and we're posting some of our previous performances. So we're really trying to stay connected. Oh, the flute. Okay, that's what I thought. I thought maybe that was another term for the flute beatboxing. I heard you guys recorded respective parts. Yes. It is on our Facebook page. It's on our Instagram page. I have not checked to see if it's on our YouTube page or not, but we're hoping to put out a few more. For any instrument, breathing comes down to just practicing your long tones, but I understand that long tones are really boring, and sometimes we don't want to spend time on them. So I try to take that weakness of not enjoying doing warm-ups and long tones, and kind of making them a little more fun. So my students, and this probably will work for flute players and oboe players, to make it a little more fun and to take the focus out of just playing a long tone, I'll have them do things like wall sits while they play. Do you know what a wall sit is? Yes. Okay. So I have them do that, and it takes like 60 seconds. And every week I try to challenge them to do it a little longer and hold that long note out while they do the wall sit. So this is not only helping us with our endurance, but it's helping to build the muscles that we need to create a good quality sound so that we can blend with everyone else in the band. How many hours a day do you practice? So growing up, when I was in high school, probably practiced like an hour or two a day. When I got to college, it was like 7 or more hours a day. And with the band and with having a family and children and many different responsibilities, I try to get in a good efficient hour of practice. Efficient hour, I plan out my practice, what it is I need to do, and having a focused practice is better. A good focused 30 minutes is better than an hour of just random practicing. So make sure you plan it out. Also with the band, we're rehearsing 3 hours a day when we're together. So could you review your weekly regimen with us? Yeah, sure, for practice. So when I sit down to practice, as I said, I like to have a nice schedule for how I'm going to get through that practicing. Depending on what it is, I have to have in my fingers, in my memory for that week. So right now I'm just trying to maintain. So I will make sure that I always do some type of warm-up. So I like to do the patterns, like I said. I'll do the patterns through all different keys, and I try to do these from memory. I might sit and look out the window and do it because I want to get that in my fingers. So I will sit and do patterns for 10 or 15 minutes. Then I will move on to an etude, probably one that I don't know. A lot of times we like to sit down and play things we do know because it makes us feel good about ourselves. We hear ourselves playing and, oh, this sounds good and it's fun. And that's great if that's what gets you inspired to practice. But make sure you don't spend all your time doing that you make sure that you challenge yourself. So spend time on those hard things. And if I only have like an hour, I'm going to look at that part of the music, that part of the Weber concerto or whatever concerto I'm working on that's difficult. And I'll take that chunk and I'll break it down into little sections. So I'll work on that first, then I'll start to expand and put it all together. I make sure to not spend too much time on one thing. I'm always moving through my music. I might do some sight reading, throwing just whatever random on the stand, playing through that. Make sure you're always sight reading. And I save for the end, I'll do, excerpts, working on excerpts. So that's a good 45 minutes to an hour for me. Another thing I've been doing right now, and I'm encouraging my students to do, is use the Acapella app because it's fun, it's engaging, it makes you record yourself, listen to yourself, compare yourself, make sure things line up, make sure you have proper rhythm. I think it's an excellent, fun tool. So I will send my part to my students. I make sure they record theirs. They send it back to me. It's a way that we stay engaged in this uncertain time. And I really appreciate you giving me the time to work with your students. I'm sorry I wasn't able to hear you, but I'm really glad we're able to connect this way. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you all when we tour through Tennessee this October.
We'll hope to be there. Thank you.